It's time once again for the FNBO Friday Feeders. I'm Susan Littlefield on the Rural Radio Network. Excited to introduce you to Cameron Korth. Cameron is from Cedar County near the Randolph area and a third generation at the feedlot that was started by his grandfather with a pretty unique story.
My grandfather is 91 years old. He started this when he quit high school. I believe he was in the 7th grade when he dropped out because his dad was sick. And ever since then, my dad stuck around, and now I'm the youngest of 4 in my family. My oldest brother is also here with me.
Tell me about the operation itself.
Maximum capacity is 10,000 head here. We feed it at 5 different yards within a mile and a half of each other. There is 7 full-time employees. Purchase cattle, mostly yearlings only. We do take a few balling calves in, but they do go to grower yards, neighbor grower yards that start them for us. Take in mostly yearling cattle from Florida, California to North Dakota, strictly for finish. And as far as when the cattle are finished, they will go to packing houses within the state and as far as each coast and Texas.
If you're getting some from Florida, for example, and they're coming to Nebraska, there's a little bit of temperature difference to what those cattle are used to.
You got to do it timing wise, Susan. You got to make sure that you have your southern and your eastern cattle in the spring and summertime, that they can be finished and shipped out before wintertime starts here in Nebraska.
What do you see as some of the biggest challenges right now for the beef industry?
A fair market is probably been the hardest thing to deal with, especially since the pandemic back in 2020. Making sure that we're getting a fair price for our fat cattle is probably one of the biggest things that is challenging.
Coming from a multi-generation, I want to talk about your grandpa for a little bit. I'm sure he is a wealth of knowledge of how things have been and seeing the changes that he's seen.
He could tell you stories all day long. He's seen more than my generation and my dad's generation have ever seen. Still very much enjoys being outside when the weather is fit and driving up and down the feed alleys, checking the cattle, looking at them, wants to know what they cost, what we're selling them for. That has never and never will leave his state of mind. Once you're a cattle feeder, you're always a cattle feeder. And he would run 20 years ago, my grandpa would run the Midwest and the West, talking Wyoming and Montana, purchasing feeder cattle for himself and other customers. And he loves to talk about the times he spent in Wyoming and Montana, the people that he met, the ranchers, the truckers. I mean, just he could write a book. I'm sure nobody would care to read it, but it's those kind of people that got this industry to where it is right now.
Well, talk about that customer relationship, because I think you guys have obviously kept that going over the years through your dad and now through you guys.
We do custom feed quite a few cattle here, Susan. My dad and myself both own a fair share, but that is something that takes a lifetime to build. We do not feed for any how do I want to say that, investors. They are all local, long-time friends and cattle feeders that have been in the industry and have generations in their industry as well.
That's my conversation with Cameron Korth from Cedar County, Nebraska, FNBO's Friday Feeder. I'm Susan Littlefield on the Rural Radio Network.